Other big news, there was an interview with Shuhei Yoshida about the possibility of a Vita successor, and he said the climate is not healthy and noted the fact that mobile touch telephone games about little birds are too successful, and we're probably not going to be seeing a Vita successor, which really shouldn't be a huge surprise. Like, we've kind of seen the writing on the wall here for a while. What do we make of this?
Well, I was actually pretty fascinated with a couple of the industry reactions to this. One was the Kotaku editorial that basically said that mobile didn't kill the Vita, Sony did. And there's obviously a lot of debates over that. I think that from the jump, it's been very difficult, and we've talked about this on the show before, but it's been very difficult to sort of position the PlayStation Vita as something that makes sense in sort of the climate with the rest of their products. And then it's also something that sort of, I don't know if people are or ever will be entirely great with playing a full-fledged next-gen console game on a handheld. I still think that it's something that it's why you see Nintendo still doing pretty well. I mean, their handheld line is obviously selling, not as well as the DSOs did or the Game Boy used to, but I think that they're still sort of holding on to that sort of cutesy, quirky look. And I think it works to an extent. And I think that a lot of us have sort of connected with our Vita with games like that. Some of my favorite games to play on Vita are things like Shovel Knight or Guacamelee or even Sound Shapes. Killzone, I had a really enjoyable time playing that to an extent. Like, when I'm sitting on a plane, I'm like, I get to play something that looks like somewhere between PS3 and PS4. It's pretty awesome. But in the grand scheme of things, like, that's, it's a game with a short campaign and a kind of a decent multiplayer chucked in. And I don't really know if that's really what the system's made for. So I don't really know if it's mobile that's killing that stuff. I think it's Sony's sort of kind of inability to jump in on those type of games and find a place for them. I think Sony could make a fucking awesome handheld, and they could fill it with really good games that satiate people like us who want hardcore games, but also want something a little quirkier and more fun.
I think the Vita tried to be too many things.
Yeah.
I think it really overextended itself, and kind of looking at where it succeeded and where it failed and what Sony's doing now, I think it kind of it thought too big, like, it's a big gorgeous screen, which is great, but it also kind of cuts down on the whole portability factor, which is sort of the whole selling point. I mean, the PSP Go, really cool idea, came out at exactly the wrong time.
Yeah. And I felt like it was too small.
It was their Game Boy Micro.
Also, like, the fact that they just partnered with Spotify, and you've got PlayStation Music, and it's not this weird proprietary service with, like, Sony Entertainment Group or whatever, where you buy music on this thing that might get hacked and disappear someday.
Yeah.
I use Spotify on my PS4 all the time. I feel like if they'd released something for a Vita that was smaller, and it was like out the gate, it was like, hey, here's something that's, I don't know, $200, $150 that's not for these AAA experiences, but is you can replay Final Fantasy VII. You can play
a lot of the PSN
you can play
games that you already downloaded for
Guacamelee.
PS4.
Like, I mean, if they made it a destination, it came out as kind of an accessory to the PS3. And the PS3 was kind of isolated in that sense, like, it was kind of, it was doing its own thing, and it really works awesomely as a companion to the PS4. Yeah. But it sort of jumped the gun there. It kind of came out too early.
Yeah,
I don't know.
And I think what you said right at the beginning about it stretching itself a little bit too thin is totally apt. I've never really used it as in a remote play fashion.
Just side note, Totally Apt would be a really good name for a podcast about apps, mobile gaming.
That would,
Did we just do that?
That'd be a great show.
Here's a great new segment, Totally Apt. What's your favorite new app?
I think You're Awful.
You're a real bad boy.
Every time you say an F word on the show, we have to go back and add a sound effect to cover it up.
Oh, well, that really sucks. A lot of people have to chop up rocks for work.
What, characters in the Never-Ending Story?
Old rock choppers.
Criminals? Like, who are you defending?
Anyway, there's a lot of criminals that listen to this show.
German Muppets? I don't know.
I think you're right. It's always been sort of a jack of all trades, master of none. I think it does a lot of things really, really well, but it was the sort of stepping child between stepping child.
Wait, as someone who said piggy tailing a week ago, let's talk about stepping child.
It lived between the PS3 and the PS4, and it's a kind of a tough spot to be, because right now, like, whatever Sony does is pretty hot, right? But I think they delve into portable stuff and it doesn't work as well. A lot of people look at the PlayStation sort of handheld line and they go, ultimately is a failure. It never sold as well as Nintendo did. It never come close to what Apple does. But the PSP, I read the other day, sold 80 million units.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah.
That's insane. That puts it up there with some of the most successful video game devices of all time. That's like really, really good numbers. So I mean, for reference, that's something like 3.5 times the Xbox or the GameCube. So I think there's a place for it. I think they'd have to completely retool their vision. I think Max is right, and we've said it on the show before. The design of the Vita is amazing. It's gorgeous, but I don't think it really makes sense as a handheld. It's sort of a luxury item. You have to put it inside of a case. Like you look at like something like an iPad, right?
Yeah.
Where people can just flip it open, or their phone, they just shove it in their pocket. I think that there's a way for Sony to make a dedicated handheld. I think it needs to be more open to just being weird and doing some of the weird, smaller, crazy things. That I think is what I really ended up loving the Vita for the most.
Yeah,
part
I mean,
anyway.
the idea of the Vita being like what the PS1 was.
Yeah.
Were sort of a cheap way for weird developers to make ideas that normally wouldn't exist on home consoles. I mean, I don't really agree. I think it feels good. I love how the Vita feels. It feels more like a high caliber electronic than the
It feels
3DS
great.
does.
I love it.
I don't think it's too big or anything. That being said, I've tossed it in my bag and spilled booze on it and broken Vitas before.
Do you put a case on it?
No,
Yeah. So I mean, you're in the minority. A lot of people.
I'm the kind of guy that doesn't.
I
use
got
cases.
real little pockets, and it doesn't really work to shove it in a pocket. And
Yeah.
I think
They should sell Sony branded Jinkos.
Yeah, they should. That'd
Yeah.
be a
The
really,
Gene Company.
They could have Crash Bandicoot embroidered on the back pocket.
That's right.
Be real hip and with the
What are you
times.
doing back there, Crash? Oh, just chilling on an ass cheek.
So yeah, I mean, it's.
Well, remember
We're kind of watching a slow death of this thing, right?
Yeah.
And I think that sucks. That's
But
what people aren't really used to seeing.
We're also seeing Sony kind of like chop off a lot of its other kind of arms and legs. Like they stopped doing PC stuff pretty recently.
Right.
They've pretty much backed off of. I mean, they've got still some mobile stuff going on, but like they've been pretty open about the fact that like the PlayStation arm is really the thing that's the strongest. Like that's where they're succeeding the most.
Yep.
And I mean, the Vita it was weird because it started up and remember you could choose between like a Wi-Fi or a 3G model.
Yeah.
Which seems really weird when you think about it now because it's not even on the table.
Sure.
Oh yeah.
And it also came out really hot on the tail of the Xperia Play, which was like this Ericsson branded sort of PlayStation phone.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like you kind of got to just sort of consolidate who is this for? What is it? And it's like they were kind of cannibalizing on their own. Here's buy our product to put in your pocket. Which one? The one with the PlayStation buttons. Which one?
Yeah,
And it's
totally. Yeah, and it's also just strange. Like I feel like it's. I mean, we don't have the actual stats, but I feel like I would be willing to bet a majority of the people who own a Vita also now have a PS4.
Yep.
If they were relative early adopters within the first year or two. And so their sort of insistence on this being a companion device to the PS4, where it's like, oh, it gives your house a second PS4. I've never used it as that. Like, I use it because all of us travel a lot, and I use it because it has, it plays a lot of the amazing indie games that I love on PS4. A lot of them are cross-buy. It also has things like Golden Abyss and Gravity Rush and Persona 4 that I love.
Yeah, I mean, I remember I was in Tokyo for TGS last year, and some of the IGN guys were playing Destiny on their Vitas, and I was just like, how is this possible?
Yeah.
Like, how are you doing this? Or I forget it was Destiny. It was some other AAA shooter type game, and they're just like in their hotels playing Destiny with their PS4s on in America, and it kind of like. It's incredible, It's like it's the kind of stuff we just take for granted, and like we said, very ambitious system, very gorgeous, very awesome, great lineup. I think ultimately, I'm not going to remember it for that. I'm not going to remember it for the Golden Abysses. I'm going to remember it for like those smaller, quirkier games that I played on it.
Yeah.
And the fact that like for the first year of it, it was kind of a pain in the ass to organize.
Yeah, jeez, seriously.
Then they came out with folders. The world changed. Everyone got happier.
But it's one of those things I love pulling out, like when I go out on a trip and looking at and just being like, I have no idea what I want to play right now, but I have 40 games on here.
Oh,
that
yeah,
range
like
from
that's
PS1s to Persona 4 to
The library on that thing, like on my Vita currently, when I turn that on a flight, I'm just like, I don't even know where to start. I'm the same way. I have so many
It's
good
also
games
like
there.
great for Netflix. Like that
Yeah.
screen is
absolutely.
gorgeous.
Yeah.
I brought it on vacation at one point because I was like, I don't want to bring anything I can check my email with. I mean, you
Yeah.
could check my email with it, but why
You're not
bother?
going to. Yeah.
It's kind of nice.
That's
Yeah,
good.
it's sort of a weird little device. I love it to death. Sad to hear that it's actually dying.
It's been it's been a weird year for Sony. Like if you think about it, like their first party stuff hasn't really knocked it out the park. We haven't seen a ton of stuff from their first party studios, and we've kind of seen they haven't really committed to throwing this thing in the grave yet. But we've seen quotes here and there that are sort of just like, "Well, it's been a good run, little buddy," you know. Like so, we'll see. I mean, it's good to know that it's not totally dead yet. There's still some stuff coming, but this seems like the end of PlayStation handhelds for a while.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to be seeing an Infamous. I don't think we're going to see another God of War.
Oh, no, never. You'll never see anything like that.
Yeah.